What's going on, everyone? So Jade appears to be this iteration of Christopher. That Jade is kind of following a very similar path with the obsession of the symbol. Now he has that obsession with the bottle notes, and we'll see like what that ends up being, how that ends up coming to light. Like, what is it? Is it coordinates? Is it address? Is it, dates? Right? I still think, especially now that they added the potential of like time travel, or at least time fluctuations, or little pocket dimensions, or whatever you want to call that dungeon, and what we saw with Julie, right? There is the potential now that those could be maybe even potential future dates. But nonetheless, whatever ends up happening in that regard, again, Jade is clearly having a similar, or walking a similar path to Christopher. And then there's also the reincarnation aspect and element of it, right? Like you see with Tabitha, there is a clear connection between Tabitha and Miranda, so much so that in the last episode, you saw Tabitha seeing Miranda's visions or memories of her death, right? You see her leave Victor, run to the bottle tree to try to jump into the bottle tree, and gets met with Smiley, and Smiley ends up tracking her down and taking her out. Right? So Tabitha either A, is the reincarnated version, and she's having these memories that are really Miranda's, or, something is putting those memories in her, whether it's a vision, or it's Miranda reaching out to her, or it's FROMVILLE giving her and filling in those gaps. But, okay, if Tabitha is the reincarnated version of Miranda, does that mean Jade is the reincarnated version of Christopher? It's possible. Now, Jade is listed as 40 years old when, like, you look up his age on, like, the wiki fandom sites or whatever. So we don't really know how old he is exactly, but, look, he's older. He's got gray in his beard, right? He's definitely not in his 20s, right? Like, he's got to be, late 30s, early 40s at worst, right? So let's go under the assumption he is 40. Okay, well, that would line up with maybe potentially Christopher dying and Jade being the reincarnated version of Christopher. Christopher dies, boom, Jade is born shortly after. Well, it also lines up with Christopher being Jade's father. So, Jade says, when he's talking to Henry, right? Jade and Henry are walking, and they're having a conversation, and, Jade gives Henry some advice on how to handle the whole Victor thing. But Henry asked Jade, what would your father say, right? And he said, well, first off, I'd tell my father, where have you been my whole life? He never knew his father. He never saw his father. He doesn't know who his father is. Nothing. His father was gone before he was born, or after birth, or whatever. We don't know how long. We just know that his father has been absent for Jade's entire life. Well, what if Christopher was the one that impregnated Jade's mother, and then Christopher ended up being in FROMVILLE, and Jade and her mother just didn't know. They had no idea. Right? Like, we saw, like, Victor, when Henry's playing with that little, car, and Victor says, oh, this was a present for the lady's kid, and, obviously never made it there, right? Because she ended up getting picked up beforehand. Okay, well, maybe something similar happened. Maybe Christopher maybe he was on his way to go see Jade, right? Maybe that's why he had the ventriloquist dummy thing. Maybe he wanted to, kind of, play with his baby and stuff like that. Or maybe Jade was a little kid when it happened, right? And, and he had idea of like, hey, let me go and, play with my kid and do the ventriloquist doll or whatever, right? Like, Jade literally sees Christopher and Jasper on numerous occasions, but we just saw see him in the previous episode. So there is clearly a connection between Christopher and Jade. Whatever that connection is. One way or another, there is a clear connection between the two. Okay, well, is it a reincarnation thing? Or is it a bloodline thing? Is it that Christopher ended up giving birth to Jade? Christopher ends up in FROMVILLE. Jade grows up not knowing his father, didn't know where or what happened to his father. And all of a sudden, Jade ends up in FROMVILLE following the same path as his father, going through the same motions as his father. Only is at this time he's the one that's going to solve it and kind of pick up where his father failed. Right? Is it a bloodline thing and not a reincarnation thing? Or is the reincarnation thing only several characters? Right? Like, there's still the possibility that, because again, the timeline still adds up to where Christopher could have died and Jade was born. But I thought it was very interesting that Jade revealed that, hey, like, I never knew my father. Okay. Timeline adds up. Christopher and Jade have this connection. Is that just pure coincidence? Or is there some type of history there? Whether it's, again, a relative thing, bloodline thing, father and son, reincarnation, right? If it's not reincarnation, then there's gotta be a connection. Okay, again, bloodline makes a lot of sense. I mean, doesn't get any more blood than your own son that now has to come in and go through the same type of emotions that you had to go through when you were there. And it would make sense that he would have the same obsession. And, this place would reach out to Jade in a similar capacity as Christopher, right? Because this place could very well sense kind of that connection and sense like that bloodline. I really do think that, I don't think that line was just a throwaway line. I think that there is genuine connection between Christopher and Jade saying, I never knew my father. I think that was like a foreshadowing, hint, hint, wink, wink. Just wait, because you're about to find out that, hey, buddy, Christopher is actually Jade's son. Or Jade is actually Christopher's son, not the other way around, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it adds up. I think that you can continue kind of expand on that story there and how Christopher and Jade were attracted to the same thing, right? Why this place keeps reaching out to Jade in the way that it does, and then also with Christopher. Maybe the boy in white tries to talk to Christopher at some point, or talk to Jade the way he talked to Christopher at some point. And you have this kind of connection and whatnot. I really find this very fascinating. And as soon as I heard him say, like, I never knew my father, I was like, oh, is it Christopher? And so I had to like look, okay, well, how old is Jade? We don't really know exactly, but like, is there like a roundabout? And it said 40. Okay, so let's say it's around about that. That adds up. It can make sense. You can make that make sense. Again, if Jade was 25, then no. Yeah, that doesn't work. But at 40, even at like 38 or whatever, right? Like, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, hang on a minute, time out. We have something here. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that, hey, it makes sense. Timeline adds up, right? Maybe, Jade was a baby, or was, it was like right before he was given birth. Because, she could have been pregnant, right? Maybe she was pregnant at the time. Fortunately, like, we've never seen Christopher in any, like, real capacity outside of, like, again, just him popping up, like, surprise, or, in, like, flashbacks of Victor and stuff, right? Like, I'd love if there was, like, a story of, like, Victor was like, oh, yeah, Christopher, he came here on the way to his son's birth or something. And I'd be like, oh, like, it is true, right? Like, something along those lines. But, as of right now, we don't have any real confirmation one way or another. But it's just like, is it really the reincarnated route? Because it does still line up reincarnation-wise, right? Like, the timeline still lines up. So I do think, look, if Tabitha is the reincarnated version of Miranda, then chances are it's probably that route with Jade also. But I'd also like it to be different. I'd like it to be a little more creative. Like, okay, like Tabitha is the reincarnated version of Miranda. Maybe the chosen ones constantly become, just reincarnate into a different version, right? But other characters, it is a bloodline thing. Other characters, it is a relative thing. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, so yes, Jade's relationship and connection to Christopher is that was his father. I just think that that would be a cool kind of way to explain that and kind of have the story be a little more fitting. Personally, I think that that would be a little more, a little different, less lazy. But again, do you feel the same way? Do you not? Do you think, no, it should be the reincarnated route? Do you like the idea of Christopher being Jade's father? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I love to hear it. So let me know either way down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out, so we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.